Welcome back. This is Sam Collins and Norman Pappous on Meet in the Middle with our guest today, Miss Adrienne Bell. As I've said earlier, Norman and I noticed that there's going to be a blue wave this fall, so we dressed in blue or light blue. We're going to make it darker as we get into the fall. But with that being said,
He's real funny.
with that being said, there's an expectation that several seats will be won by the Democratic Party and turn the House blue again. So if you are elected, what would you do? What would be your first legislative initiative to push or promote?
Outside of healthcare, because healthcare is really going to be a massive effort.
Yes. Well, there's going to be a blue tsunami. I just want to make sure that we know that it's not going to be a little wave. Thank you for wearing that blue, though. It gives me some encouragement and spirit.
I remember you as a very decent person, so I wanted to make you feel welcome, because you are welcome here.
Thank you. I feel welcome. I am really wanting to push early childhood education and to make sure that in Texas we have full day early childhood education. Not just half a day, but that every child has the right to education, that they start education at the age of 3, and that they have a quality education not based on their zip code. When I first started education and learning about education, and I realized that a child, by the time they're in 3rd grade, if they're not reading on 3rd grade level, they'll struggle the rest of their school years. And I find that fascinating because you're only talking about 8-year-olds. So by the time they're 8, it's sort of cemented. So they need that cushion from 3 to 8 to make sure that they are reading at high levels. I look at success as being literacy. If they are good readers, if they know how to comprehend, then there's so much more things in life that they'll be successful at. But it has to start at early childhood education.
And so I agree with you. I mean, everybody at this table, and I think most of the people watching are massive education promoters, and they realize that our children are our future. And in today's world, you don't stop learning. It's one of the great sadnesses of my life was that I got a higher degree and I'm like, oh, I'm done with the books and the tests. No, I wasn't. And I think it's going to be even more true for the generations that follow, given the technologies, and everything they're going to have to learn at work. But when you get there, there's going to be certain pragmatic things that you're going to have to fulfill, and one of them is, should the blue wave come and take the House, they're going to say, Adrienne, what committees do you want? Now, NASA and energy are very important to this region. So would you want to be, included on those committees?
I want to be on the Veteran Affairs Committee. Right now, the only representative because there's so many veterans in our area, and the only representative we have from Texas is Beto O'Rourke, who would be moving off that committee. So I would like to go on that committee. I want to make sure that our veterans, I like to bring in community engagement boards in our county, 25,000 veterans here, and I like to see the counties have veteran boards, engagement boards.
Okay. So, what about NASA? Because NASA is unique to this area. So is the space program something you'd be looking to contribute to all your time on Capitol Hill?
Yes, but as far as the committee, that's the committee that I want to go to is Veteran Affairs.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we have a Texas representative there.
Okay.
All right. Several of the programs that we've talked about and you've talked about, and oftentimes with Democrats, the issues come up of providing these services or benefits to a larger group. How are we going to pay for that? Or what areas are going to be cut? How do you plan, if you get in, to support expanding these benefits?
And don't say defense.
Oh, I'm going to say military budget, $700 billion for equipment.
The reason you got this is where I think people in D.C. get it very wrong. We will come around and we will say there's $22 trillion in debt. Our kids are drowning in debt. Okay, and they'll say those programs over there that they love, cut them. Okay, to me that does not show. Forgive me, that, and I say this to both sides. That does not show the level of leadership I expect in Washington. What I want to see is we are willing to cut X, Y, and Z. These are favored programs that typically are read. I'm casting myself as a Republican. So I am going to cut defense. I'm going to cut, what's another, Republican
breaks to
spending?
the
Yeah,
rich.
tax break.
Yeah.
I'm going to increase taxes. I'm going to cut defense. I'm going to increase taxes on the rich. What are you going to do from your,
From the Democrat side.
from the Democratic side?
I'm going to say, yes, you're right, you should do that.
So you would not come back
You're
and.
saying the negotiation, this is where we're talking about the meat in the middle. How could we compromise, lose something, Democrats lose something that they value, because as he's saying, you're giving up something that perceived that Republicans value.
But that's something that I look at things as American. I really don't look at it being red as blue. How are we going to pay for early childhood education? I would rather talk to you about reducing military spending on equipment. We're not talking about reducing the care and the protection of our veterans and those that are still serving. But what can we do to better America? What can we take away from that program to help this program? I don't look at this as a Democratic program, that's a Republican program. It's an American program.
But they are. They are. And if I'm a congressperson and I say, look, we're willing to reduce these programs and raise these taxes that we fought hard for, you have to go to your favorite programs and cut, because we can't take the cuts out of my favorite programs to add to your programs and reduce the budget. It's not that, all you're doing is you're saying you're taking money out of my programs, giving them to your programs, and our kids are still $22 trillion in debt.
I think that's what part of our problem is. We're looking at them as separate programs, like we have two sets of America. And we have one set of America. I understand that if you co-sponsor a bill, this is a bill that you are really for. It's something you want to see happen. Since we have a GOP-led House and Senate, the things that are being passed are GOP-led. And so therefore, there are more things that I could take today or tomorrow or next year from your programs to help the other programs. But I think it's a part of just negotiating and say, normally
But
you're
you're
going to
not
give me that money.
negotiating. You're
Well,
just saying
it's reallocating.
because at the end of the day, the debt is still $22 trillion. You haven't influenced it at all.
Well, let's look at it this way. If the military is $700 billion spending, that's one program. What program on the Democrat side are you thinking of that's $700 billion that's equal to the military? Because what she may be saying is that there may be a smaller $200 billion Democratic program and the $700 billion military program. Those are two individual programs, and cutting one here and one here, $1 is not equal. What you may have to do is the military, if it's 700 and this other program was 200, if you said 10% from both of them, then this goes down 20 billion and this goes down 70 billion. Now for the Republican, they say, well, you cut more from my program. Well, it was 10% of both of them.
I agree. Because you're not comparing apples and oranges.
You can't just
That's
say I did
$700
one over
billion
here and
is
one over there.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. If we're going to 10% out of each program is fine. I'll go further. I think that we should look at every department and every program and make sure that it's constitutionally viable, because that whole 10th Amendment said those things which are not, we don't talk about in the Constitution, are granted to the states. And Congress has somehow forgotten all about that. And that drives me bananas. And I can't go down that road because
I think
I'll bogart everybody's
we,
time.
we have fed the beast to the point that, 435 representatives in the House and 100 senators. So we've given that 535 individuals and the president or whatever. So 535 individuals control how much in tax revenue?
Agreed.
Yeah. So
But back to Ms. Bell. When you sit in the room with these guys and they go, because if you gain control of Congress, if there's the blue wave, you know that they are going to say that their response for all the new programs are, we're $22 trillion in debt.
Yes.
And it will be hypocritical, and I absolutely will grant you that point. But my kids and his kids don't care that it's hypocritical.
Right. Right.
Okay, so
Right.
so where I will grant you defense from my side, I will grant you less subsidies for industry. I will grant you higher taxes for the wealthy.
For the wealthy, okay.
Okay, those are things that are typical Republican talking points. Okay, where on your side? I'm not trying to ask you to make $700 billion up, but what programs do you think are too fat and could be that are typical democratically aligned programs that could be trimmed back in an effort to lower the cost of government for his children and my children?
I would first look at our budget and look at items that we could eliminate before I'd start eliminating programs, starting there. Of what in our budget I know there's a lot of waste that goes on. And what wasteful programs we have that we could get rid of. Before we look at programs that are affecting people. I would start there. I don't have one right now. I could just say, well, this is what I would give up. Because I don't have one, but I know there are some.
Do you understand where we're coming from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There, you give some to get some. I understand that. But I just wouldn't be so easy to give up programs that are benefiting people, like cutting Meals on Wheels. No, I would dig my heels in on that. I'm not cutting a service for seniors. But I know there's some things that we are doing that we could eliminate. That may not be a democratic
let me ask
program.
you, let's take that, because that's a really emotional issue. Okay? Meals on Wheels. Should the government be in the business of providing meals to the elderly? The federal government.
The federal government. Well, first, we should be taking care of our own as family. But since we don't have all that going on, someone has to do it. Who do you suggest would do it?
I'm not running for Congress.
I'm just asking. It's just.
I can tell you exactly who should not do it, and that's the federal government.
I think locally you should take care of it. I think it's family. I think it's church. I think it's community. But lacking those resources, it has to be done. And the Meals on Wheels program, look out for seniors.
Well, I think what Norman and I probably agree on this subject is that when you send the dollar through Washington, D.C., it goes through so many hands before it gets back to the those seniors that need the Meals on Wheels, and also the waste and exploitation of trying to run a program from the national level.
Yes.
I'll give a small case study.
And let's be clear that they don't run it from the national level, but they do give it from the national level, and that is money that's expected from Meals on Wheels.
They expect the money to come back.
Yeah.
But it goes through so many different hands before it kind of comes back. And I know in theory it goes to Washington, they approve the program.
Yeah, they're
and they send
taking
it
$1
back
from all of us in order to give 80 cents to Meals on
Back to them.
Wheels.
Yeah. So that 20% markup, it would be much better if individuals would, on the local level, if our churches were stronger and our communities were stronger to provide those services. But I think maybe they don't provide them because they have this expectation that it's going to come from
the
DC.
government. That I believe should be redirected. It should be starting like it started at home first. So the communities.
Yeah, I mean, you see one mother raise 4 or 5 kids, and then 5 kids can't take care of one mother.
You see that.
That is a local problem.
And that brings up something that we have not discussed, that we discussed with you last time, and that is the idea of a living wage. All right. Back to Denmark and Norway and all that. Bernie Sanders was.
Just jumped in there.
Yeah.
Talk about waste. Bernie Sanders and minimum wage. You lost your train of thought there.
No, I lost my connection.
Okay.